No one inside the paddock expected the atmosphere to shift so violently before a single wheel had even turned on the asphalt. As the pit lane lights flickered to life at the Chang International Circuit, the air wasn't just thick with the notorious Thai humidity. It was heavy with a technical tension that hadn't been felt in over a decade. This wasn't merely the start of the 2026 season. It was the definitive proof of concept for the most discussed transition in modern racing history. The Toprak Experiment was no longer a theory discussed in hospitality suites. It was a roaring reality. The arrival of the Turkish standout on the Yamaha V4 satellite project represented a high-stakes gamble that threatened to dismantle the established hierarchy of the Grand Prix world. Observers noted a palpable silence in the Pramac Yamaha garage as the final preparations were made. This transition to the V4 engine architecture marked a total departure from Yamaha's traditional engineering philosophy. For years, the inline-4 was the brand's signature, known for its fluid corner speed. But to combat the dominance of European manufacturers, the Japanese giant had to pivot. The weight of this corporate shift rested squarely on the shoulders of a rider coming from the production-based world. Critics had spent months speculating that the transition would be a significant setback for his career, citing the immense difficulty in mastering carbon fiber braking systems and the sensitive electronics of a GP prototype. Yet, as the visor went down, the narrative changed. The underdog wasn't just entering the fray to participate. He was there to conduct a technical rebellion that would send shockwaves through every factory box on the grid. But behind that calm, professional exterior in the satellite garage, the telemetry suggested a pressure was building that few riders could survive. Reports from insiders indicated that the early sessions were fraught with technical friction as the crew scrambled to adapt the V4 power delivery to a riding style that had never been seen in this paddock. The rider's signature approach, characterized by late, aggressive deceleration, placed an immense strain on the front-end geometry of the new machine. This wasn't just a learning curve. It was a total recalibration of what a Yamaha was capable of doing. Engineers were seen in heated discussions over the anti-dive settings as the rider pushed the bike into zones that the simulation software hadn't even predicted. According to those close to the project, the decision to opt for a satellite team over a factory seat was a calculated move to avoid the stifling bureaucracy of a corporate garage. This allowed for a more agile development cycle, but it also meant fewer resources when things went wrong. During the opening runs, the bike's stability under load became a point of intense scrutiny. Paddock whispers suggested that the team had deviated from the factory-recommended weight distribution, moving the center of gravity to the rear to find traction where others were struggling. It was a high-stakes defiance of traditional engineering wisdom. If the gamble paid off, he would be hailed as a technical genius. If the tires couldn't withstand the thermal load of the Buriram heat, the debut would be recorded as a catastrophic miscalculation. The tension was so thick that even rival mechanics were seen peering into the box, trying to decipher the data on the monitors. Inside the rival garage, a different kind of storm was brewing as the veteran champion watched the monitors with a clinical, almost predatory focus. Marquez, the most decorated rider on the current grid, wasn't just preparing for a race, he was conducting a psychological audit of his newest rival. At this stage of his career, Marquez had shifted his strategy from pure all-or-nothing aggression to a sophisticated long-game approach. He had seen numerous champions from other disciplines attempt to breach the MotoGP walls, and most had faced a difficult recovery from the attempt. However, the data coming from the track during the first 15 minutes of the session suggested that this time, the threat was of a different magnitude. Marquez's approach to the Thai weekend was a masterclass in observation. While the media focused on lap times, the Spaniard was analyzing the body language of the Yamaha V4. He remained uncharacteristically quiet in his post-run briefings, leading some to believe he was unsettled by the rookie's immediate pace. Technical analysis of his sector times showed that Marquez was deliberately holding back in the final hairpin, likely to avoid showing his true braking potential to the cameras. He was playing a game of shadowboxing at 200 miles per hour. The veteran knew that the humidity and declining grip levels of the Chang circuit would eventually punish those who were too aggressive too early. Yet the composure shown by the newcomer was starting to erode the psychological advantage that Marquez had held over the field for over a decade. The ghost of past rivalries seemed to haunt the box, as the team realized that the territory they once owned was now being systematically invaded. And from that moment, the narrative shifted from a human rivalry to a desperate battle against the laws of physics as the Thai sun began to bake the track. The asphalt temperature soared to 50 degrees Celsius, creating a thermal trap that tested the limits of every cooling duct and electronic sensor on the grid. Buriram is notorious for being a stop-and-go circuit, requiring extreme deceleration that generates massive heat in the carbon brake discs. For the new Yamaha V4 project, this was the ultimate stress test. If the engine's cooling package failed to evacuate heat, the power delivery would become inconsistent, leading to what some engineers described as a critical loss of rhythm. Technical breakdowns of the session revealed that several riders were experiencing significant grip degradation in the final 5 minutes of their runs. Small slides began to appear on the rear end of the factory bikes, yet the satellite Yamaha seemed to remain uncannily stable. This led to intense speculation in the media center about a disputed advantage regarding their tire pressure management. Some insiders claimed that the satellite team had discovered a unique window for the Michelin compounds that the factory units had overlooked. However, the cost of this performance was physical. The humidity combined with the bike's heat output was putting the rider's fitness to the ultimate test. It wasn't just about who was the fastest. It was about whose equipment would survive the brutal environment without a major mechanical setback. As the session progressed, the garage atmosphere turned from professional focus to high-stakes crisis management, as telemetry showed sensors reaching their absolute thermal limits. Yet the real turning point happened away from the primary timing screens during a routine scouting run mid-session. For 3 consecutive corners, the 2 biggest names in the sport found themselves occupying the same piece of asphalt, and the contrast in their philosophies was explosive. It wasn't an official duel, but it was a declaration of intent. High-definition onboard footage captured the Yamaha V4 deep on the brakes into turn 3, with the rear wheel dancing inches off the ground. A dangerous moment by anyone else's standards, but a signature of control for the newcomer. Marquez, trailing by less than half a second, appeared to be recording every movement, studying the aerowake of the new machine. The paddock was left stunned by the visual disparity, the raw mechanical violence of the Yamaha against the serpentine fluid precision of the Ducati. It was a clash of eras unfolding in real time. Television cameras zoomed in on the 2 riders several times, capturing a moment that had the entire pit lane speculating about the potential for a major confrontation in the upcoming sprint race. Rumors began to circulate that Marquez had deliberately adjusted his line to squeeze the rookie, testing his spatial awareness. The psychological impact of this encounter could not be overstated. For the first time, the king of Buriram looked as though he was genuinely concerned about the defensive capabilities of a rival machine. This wasn't just a practice session anymore. It had become a high-speed game of chess where the winner wouldn't be decided by a trophy, but by who blinked first under the relentless Thai sun. However, the twist that followed the checkered flag would change the championship narrative entirely as the technical reports began to surface. While the public saw a leaderboard topped by the newcomer, the internal data suggested a difficult reality behind the scenes. The electronic drift caused by the extreme heat had reached a level that the engineers described as unsustainable. Despite the headline-grabbing lap times, the bike was reportedly becoming unpredictable at the end of long runs. This revelation turned the excitement in the Yamaha box into a frantic race against time to find a solution before the qualifying session. According to Garage Insiders, the communication between the Turkish champion and his international crew had reached a heated point regarding the traction control maps. The rider wanted more direct power. The engineers wanted to save the engine from a severe setback. Across the paddock, Marquez's team remained eerily calm despite a heavy lose at turn 12 earlier in the day. Their data showed that while they were slower over a single lap, their tire longevity was superior. The aftermath of Friday's practice was a paddock divided. One side saw a new era of dominance beginning, while the other saw a technical project that was pushing its limits too hard, too fast. As the sun set over the Chang International Circuit, the chilling realization remained. The points were still up for grabs, and the real war for the 2026 title had only just reached its first major